Yeah. Now, can you see it nice and clear? Because I like to get a little bit of a chuckle out again. It's just, can you see that? I can't see it myself. So what happens if we kill the lights? Can you not see the screen?
You won't track the camera very well.
Oh, it starts buzzy. Okay. It's fine for you guys? Okay, it's kind of washed up. I'm too close. Okay, so worries and distractions. I thought that was pretty cool. There's somebody with a great big cup of soft drink there and a hamburger and driving at the same time. A little distracted. And at least they've got their seatbelt on. So what could possibly go wrong? So this is the classic story of Mary and Martha. So now, Mary and Martha, this is a bit controversial. Some people get kind of hot under the collar when they read this story. And it seems like Martha kind of gets the bum end of the stick or something like that, but not really. If you really know what's going on here, you'll see that Martha is actually getting a great blessing. She's getting a teaching, a bit of a rebuke, but it's to bless her and so that she might grow. And one of the cool things about Mary and Martha is they kind of show up a few times in the Gospels. Just here in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, maybe just in Luke, and then in the Gospel of John, in a big way, at the death of Lazarus, their brother. So Lazarus dies, and there's this whole thing that happens, this conversation that Jesus has with them. And you can see progression and a change here, especially with Martha. And then later on, there's a story of Mary pouring the perfume on Jesus' feet. So there's a few stories that show kind of spiritual growth with these ladies. So nothing bad is happening. It seems like Jesus has probably developed a relationship with them over a few years or a few months. She's got to know them, and he comes by on his way. Somehow, this is on the travel log, the heading towards Jerusalem in his final days or final months, and this is one of the things that happens. So it says, so let's do the next one. It says, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. And so that's Martha opening her home to him. I was checking out some of the resources. I always kind of have in my mind's eye this picture of Jesus' day in Palestine, like kind of a little bit mud huts with little roofs, and that's all there is. But actually, a lot of people lived in a fair bit of style. They had quite fairly elaborate homes with several levels, a courtyard. When they talk about the upper room, it's usually a second story that you would climb up to. So they were fairly elaborate to some degree. This kind of story and the other stories about Mary and Martha suggest they may have had a little bit of money. So the two of them seem to live by themselves or with Lazarus, so two sisters and a brother, which is pretty unusual for their day. And it seems to be it's Martha's place. So because it says Martha opened her home to him. So she's kind of the owner, proprietor, or head person involved of this place. I think it's pretty significant if we kind of think that there's a rap on Martha here, that Martha actually represents what it's all about as far as the core of Christian faith is concerned. She opened her home to Jesus. There's one thing, is that like the kernel of the core truth about our faith, Christianity, is that it's about opening, for starters, it's about opening our lives to Jesus Christ. Got the window here to prove it. Right beside the preacher, too. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and sup with him, or have fellowship with him, or be a friend to him, or hang out with him, and he or she with me. So that's kind of the beginning point that we've been emphasizing forever, and this is exactly what Martha does. She opens her home up to Jesus. We just had a story a few weeks ago about him heading towards a village in Samaria. They didn't want him around, so he left. And that's the way he is. Do you want him around or not? So she does. She wants him around. And she is therefore a disciple. She's on the path. And therefore Jesus is more bold with her in order to correct her, to help her along on her journey. So she's got this sister named Mary. And it says about Mary, it's a very key verse, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. There it is. So she is, that's a great picture. I mean, so it's kind of seems very good, kind of period of the period. It seems to be well done. Jesus has got a beard, and he's talking to Mary, and she's just intent on him. Now this expression, she sat at Jesus' feet, actually is more than just sitting at somebody's feet. It's about being a pupil or being someone who is submitting to the authority and the teaching of someone else. For instance, Paul, later on in one of his letters, he says, I sat at the feet of Gamaliel. And there's this guy, Gamaliel, who's a famous Jewish rabbi of the first century. And he's very famous. In fact, many of his writings have been preserved to this day outside of the Bible. And there's not very many of those around from the first century. But Gamaliel's, in this case, he's mentioned in the book of Acts. But Paul says, I sat at the feet of Gamaliel. He doesn't mean, Gamaliel was walking around, he was sitting on his, he was kind of groveling on the ground beside him. It meant, he was a pupil. That's where he learned his wisdom, and he listened and hung on the words of this guy. So that's what this is saying about Mary. She's a disciple. She's listening to what Jesus has to say, and it says that too. Listening to what he said. She's intent. She's focused. She wants to hear exactly what he said. I mean, this is the guy who is the most influential man who has ever walked the face of this planet. So, and the things he said have been recorded for us, a lot of them, in the Gospels. And he's changed the world like none other. And here he is in her home, and she kind of gets that. He was probably saying stuff like the stuff that we read, the story of the Good Samaritan or something that we read last week. He's telling these stories. She'd just be hanging on every word. Who wouldn't? Well, apparently Martha would. So that's kind of the setting of the story. So it says, then Martha was distracted. You can see her in the background there. She's pouring something out of her jug and was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. It's not that hard to kind of put yourself in her shoes, right? I don't know if you've had people come to the house for a big meal, and you're kind of left on your own. Maybe the people in your family, adults, should be able to pitch in and help, and they kind of don't. They're kind of lollygagging around, watching TV, having a nice chat, and you're cutting the vegetables, kind of seething a little bit in the background. Has that ever happened? No recognition of that kind of thing. Nobody's ever had that experience. And to be truthful, there are kinds of different personalities involved here, but I'm not sure that's the point of the text. Well, we had Bob Hartley came here 5 years ago and did the what is that thing? Myers-Briggs personality types with us. There were a bunch of us. There were like there's 16 altogether possibilities, but he clumped us into I forget 8 groups or something. And there were the Marthas in one corner, and there was quite a bit of the ladies from our church. Hard-working people. And then there was a bunch of others who were in the Mary corner, and I was one of them. Apparently would be the kind of artsy, and sitting around listening to Jesus kind of thing. So, but that's really, there's probably some truth to that. That's not really where this text is going. So she's upset. She says, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Don't you care? You know what's wonderful about this is Jesus she's talking to, is the familiarity she has with him. And the confidence that she can say stuff like this to him, and she's not going to get hit by a lightning bolt or something. And I love those stories of Jesus because they show that Jesus was super, super approachable. He was a guy that anybody could hang out with. He wasn't so, too big for his britches. He didn't have this air of authority where you're afraid to get anywhere near them because they'll disdain your presence. No, none of that at all. People were they could be themselves with him. And that's what Martha's doing. She's being herself with him. This is the way she would talk when somebody was there. And she does. She says, what's the matter? Lord, come on. And she actually tells him what he should do. Tell my sister to get up and help me now. And that's brazen. But she can do it. And that tells us something about the Jesus they knew. The people that walked and talked with Jesus on this planet, 2,000 years ago. How they experienced him. And it's pretty wonderful, really. And he could handle that, no problem. So I thought, what kind of picture can I get to show of an angry Martha? So this is the best. Okay. Angry Martha. Yeah, cute. So, next page. So this is what he says. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered.
Somebody's car horn's going on. It's not mine.
Okay. Are you worried about that? No.
Well, I don't know.
I got nailed for that. I was looking at my clock in Lachlan, and Valerie had just been to the service in English. She says, "Oh, you're worried about that, are you, Harry?"
It wasn't mine.
Okay. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better. Mary has chosen what is better. This is the key thing. It's not that what she was doing was wrong. It's just that Mary chose what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So let's look at, for a little bit, worries. Let's go on. Worries. Actually, I want to go back. Can we go back for a second? So it says, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. I don't know why they did that. In the text, there's 4 words, and it basically says quite clearly, one thing is necessary. 4 words. One thing is needed. There's none of this, but few things are needed. Somebody's got a little interpretive with that. Okay, so, worries. What if? I love that picture. Because that kind of sums up all your worries. Your worries pretty much have that little phrase tucked right in there all the time, right? But if, what if, but what if? And that's constantly with us. There's none of us that are not worriers. So there's none of us for whom this is not relevant. Each and every one of us is a worrier. And I found this kind of cool thing, kind of a psychological thing online, this thing here. It kind of explains how worry happens. So there's this huge circle of things that we're concerned about, that we care about. But there's actually, the influence circle here is way too big to scale. The influence means something that you might possibly be able to do something about all those things that you care about, right? So it's actually much smaller. So if you can imagine that influence circle really tiny on there, and the difference between the things that you're concerned about and the things that you have influence over, that space in between is where worries are potential. It's the potential for worry. But it's even actually worse than this, because influence really isn't much, and you may not have much of that. So it's more like this. There's things we're concerned about, there's things we have influence over, and there's the very, very tiny itty-bitty things that we actually have control over. Do you know how much you have control over? Not much. Not much. You have control over yourself to a bit, to a degree. Even that is dubious. Right? You have control over how you spend your time and the things that you say and what you're going to do, the decisions you make, your actions. You'd like to have control over the people around you and like your family members, but not working out so well, is it? So you may have some influence. So the different that makes it even a bigger area of possibility for worry. So I thought that was kind of an insightful thing. So before we go on, so you know when you go to one of those seminars or conferences and they have a flip chart, and somebody asks you, okay, just brainstorm here. We're going to make a list of things that people worry about. So that's what we've done here, except we haven't done it. I did it all by myself. Flip chart. Okay. So these are the kinds of things we worry about. And if we had a flip chart, you could add like dozens. Money, big, huge thing that most of us spend a fair bit of time in our lives worried about. If you're well-to-do and well-off, maybe you don't. Will we have enough? Will we be able to pay the bills? That kind of stuff. Around here, it's a big one. Are we getting the best deal? You know, when you go to Independent and you decide to buy something there, and then you get to Food Line and you find out it's on special, just like, oh, you know? And so then that causes a fair bit of anxiety about whether you're going to get caught that way again. So you got to get your flyers. Yeah. Should we get gas today? Right? There's a lot of people thinking about that. I've seen them lined up the last few days, and the gas price keeps jumping, and I better get it. They're worried. Can I afford a treat? Now, this is from the sublime to the ridiculous. It might be that, how's my budget doing? Can I buy myself a bag of potato chips today? It might be more a health worry, which is the next one, health. And I'm not even going to, we know what those things are. Not only about ourselves, and our own health and mental, physical well-being. Should we go see the doctor with that? Or should we just spread it out some more, you know? There's lots of worry there. Safety, big one, safety. You may not realize how much you worry about safety. Maybe not for yourself so much, but every time you drive the car and you drive into a parking lot and you know, people are coming and going and push. Just try driving around here in the summertime. You ever done that? Yeah. One gets concerned about one's safety. But it might be more our kids or our grandkids that are starting to drive that concern us a little bit, safety-wise. Or people out in thunderstorms and tornadoes, or you know, all kinds of things. All the phobias. Most of the phobias have to do with safety. So an acrophobia, you know, afraid of heights, because I'm afraid I'm going to fall down and die. I'm afraid for my safety. Or flying in airplanes. I'm afraid that the plane's going to fall out of the sky. And you know, I'm worried. People worry about these things. Relationships. Huge, you know. That's the thing that keeps us enjoying life is our connections with other people. And if they're not going so well, it can cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of worries. It can be friends, can be spouse, can be kids, can be your nephews and nieces, your grandkids, all that kind of stuff. What people will think, that causes a lot of people a lot of worry and anxiety. Do you know that? What will they think if we don't do it right, if it doesn't look right, if we don't look right? And now, this is kind of a cultural thing, and I so far I've been tiptoeing along here. Nobody's shot me yet. I think it's been Lachlan. I'll try again. But I kind of think this thing affects to a little bit greater degree women. And I don't know what it is. I think moms told the daughters to be very careful about what things look like. You know, and they said that very line. What will people think, right? Have you ever heard that from your mom? Well, what will people think if you wear that? Blah, 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 blah. What will people think? And so it's kind of almost a women's cultural thing to a degree, but it affects men too. It's not just women. But in this case, it's definitely a woman, and that's her thing. So Martha's thing is, what will people think? I've told you this before, but in her culture, the big thing is hospitality. And welcoming people in. It's the Middle East, the Near East. That's their claim to fame. Like, you know, we got to be so hospitable, and we got to treat them like princes and princesses, and open our home and feed them and give them shelter and all that kind of stuff. And that's where Martha's coming from. She's got a whole lot of social expectation on her to do a good job, and she's the proprietor of the home. So before we, you know, get alongside Jesus, which we should. Think about that. So you think we have pressure to conform, she had more. Lost articles. Now, maybe a lot of these things are just personal things, like things that we worry about kind of pertaining to ourselves. Now let's say our heart and our mind is bigger than that, and we care about the world in which we live. We could easily get worried about these other things, like poverty and injustice, violence, like kids getting their arms chopped off in Africa, you know, because they won't join some guy's army. The environment, global warming, and the destruction of the fisheries and all that kind of stuff. Boy, that can cause you some worry. And our generation, of course, a big worry nowadays is how to raise your kids. It's always been a worry, but I think it's worse now because people know way too much. And I noticed this, you know, people raising kids today, that's why nobody's having any. You know, there's like, having like one or two. And back when we didn't know how to do it, we had 6, 7, 8, right? There was no instruction booklet, you just, try what you like. But nowadays, everybody knows a whole lot about it, and they're super worried, lest they not give their children enough opportunities to give them that leg up in life. And so they're running their kids to everything under the sun 5, 6 nights a week until they're just about exhausted. But part of it is because of this pressure. They're worried that their kids won't succeed in life unless they do all this stuff. It's a big pressure and a big worry for people. Enough exercise. I just saw, if you don't bother with exercise, this is not a worry to you. But if you're somebody like, nowadays when you drive on a Sunday morning down to the other churches, everybody's jogging and they're walking and they're biking and they're busy. A lot of people that have a discipline in that, if they miss a day or two, they get really anxious. Anyway, I'll just say that, throw that out there, because I know it's true. I've seen it in my own house and family. Technology. This is a new cause, many new causes for anxiety. Because, you know, if you've got a computer or an iPhone or an iPad or an iPod or any of those things, you got more things to worry about. More things that can go wrong. More things that you will break. More things that will get a virus. And so on, right? So we live in a world with all kinds of things, concerns, and over which we have zip-all control over, really. So in the face of that, Jesus says this: one thing is necessary. What is that thing? He doesn't actually tell us here. But he does actually tell us. He says, Mary has chosen what is better. That's the one thing. And what did Mary do? She sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. She sat at Jesus' feet, listening to what he said. See, all these worry things, you know, the gospel is not about, oh, you should stop that. Don't worry. You can put yourself through the most Herculean efforts and try to discipline your mind with power. And you will not be able to stop those worries. It's like a faucet that just pours forth. Can't do it. You are not capable of it, humanly speaking, really. They will just keep coming. I mean, there are all kinds of little techniques and strategies you can to curb it. But the gospel is not really about that. It's about this thing that Mary's doing. And it basically is what we're designed for. We're designed to be creatures that are connected to the living God. And the only way we can get connected to the living God is through Jesus. So when she's got her heart and her mind concentrated and set on the person of Jesus, which she did in this case, she wasn't in worries. The things that would worry her were in their proper place. They were balanced. So to me, it's like being. This is when you're just plagued by worries. Your world is basically upside down. You don't know what to do. You can't control anything. And that's because that's not the way we're meant to be. To connect with Jesus Christ through faith, brings you back around again, and it brings balance into your life and puts things in the proper perspective. Because when you're connected to God through Christ, then you know, at hopefully an increasing level, that He's the one that's in charge, not you. This is what faith is. You're going to talk about faith. That's what faith is. It's trusting God. Trusting in Jesus, because there's just about everything that you can't have control over in your life and in this world. And so that's what he's calling us to. This is a perspective that puts the world to rights for us. It's not our universe. We can't handle all those things, but there is one who can. And you know, so this is for someone, Martha, who actually knows this. She already knows this to a degree. She's already heard Jesus. She already knows what that does for her soul when she connects with him. But she forgets. She got distracted because it was so busy. There was so much that she felt she had to do. And it called her away from her first thing. This is why I sang the song with the kids today. Seek ye. Maybe this is what Jesus was talking to Mary about. He maybe said things like, Mary, consider the lilies of the field. Consider the birds of the air. You know, they neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your Father feeds them. Are you not much more value than they, O you of little faith? Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Maybe he was saying something like that to her. And she was tuned into that, and it brought her this great peace and kind of put her at rights with the world around her, because she was listening. So it makes sense for those who have had a connection with Jesus. This calls us back to that. You can't get beyond that. You have to keep going back to that. And for those of you that maybe never have, calls you to it. This is where you will find peace of mind. Okay, let's move on to distractions for a little bit. Let's try to go for distractions. Look, a distraction! Oh, shit. See, he's trying to distract us right there. So they're pretty common. We have a saying at our house, because we're a very distractible bunch, and it's the next one, which is squirrel. I don't know if you've seen that. This is out of a movie called Up, and it's an animated feature, and the hero of it is this great dog, And he's got a special device around his collar. You can see that little red light, that when he barks, it comes out in human language. So he talks quite eloquently, right? And he's always telling everybody, like a dog would, if he could talk, I love you, but I love you. And he loves pretty much everybody, because dogs love everybody. But, he'll be having this intense conversation with you and focused on you, and suddenly, squirrel, and off he goes. Distractions are like that. So they take us away. And distractions, there's nothing necessarily wrong with the things that distract us. Distractions can be good and bad. It's whether you let them run your life and stop you from being productive and take you away from your purpose, right? How do you get the balance with distractions? I like this one too. So, yeah. If I see any texting going on here, by the way, not going to be happy. So then I did a little flip chart, and I'll just nip through it. We're distracted by all these things. Music. Maybe you're not. I am. Super distracted by music. I cannot work and listen to music at the same time. Because I got to listen to, what the bass is doing, and what the guitar is doing, what the piano is doing, what the harmonies are doing, and I can't focus on anything else. Pictures. Any kind of a picture grabs our minds immediately. Sports of all kinds, either participating in them or watching them on TV or going to watch them somewhere, and other kinds of games can be very distracting. Like video games. You find a few people get distracted by them. People, very distracting. Probably the biggest thing that's distracting. Because people are around and they want our attention, right? And that's a normal way life works. But boy, that can be awful distracting. TV shows. You got a TV show on, I have a hard time with the conversation or doing anything else because I like a story. And I want to know all the details. Websites. Anybody ever get one of those things, a forward with an email? Check this website out. And you're like, haven't got time, but I think I will. Telephone calls. And of course, text messages, tweets, and emails. Imagination. Your imagination can distract you no end. Did you know that actually the number one distraction for drivers is daydreaming? It's like 65% of the distractions that cause accidents and stuff for drivers is just lost in thought, off here somewhere. Movies, parties, books. If you want me to do something, don't give me a good book. Because, I'll be reading the book. I love that kind of distraction. So to all that, Jesus is saying really the same thing. Martha was super distracted. He says one thing is necessary. We don't have much power in relation to the things that are coming by us to distract us. But this is kind of like the other thing. If you have something that you just love to death and you just have a passion about it, you don't bother with the distraction so much. And Jesus is calling us to make him that thing. Jesus says, make me the center of your life. Put me in that spot. Keep your eye. I've got the next one. I like this. Get your eye on the ball. If you have your eye on the ball, those that are intent on a sport or pursuing music or whatever, they just focus on that thing. And when they're passionate about it, the other distractions do not get to them. And we have someone here who is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. God became a man. He died for sinners. He rose from the grave. He gives us eternal life. He will live in and with us. He teaches us truth and wisdom and gives us joy and peace and grace and owns us outright and calls us to focus on him with our lives and follow after him passionately. And, if you get that, that takes away a lot of those distractions. They're there, and they come and go, but they don't have the power when you're that focused by his grace. And that's partly I got a picture of an emptying church, because this is widespread in North America today. The churches are struggling, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the reasons is we live in a society in which there are so many things to distract people. So many. It's the devil's playground in a sense. Not that these things are necessarily of the devil, but he uses that to keep people from getting focused on the one thing that really matters. for them and for the society in which we live. And Jesus just says it all. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Shall we pray?